are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who want it until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauber, and today I'm joined by Ryan Mauro from Capital Research Group. Oh, sorry, I think I got that slightly wrong. Capital Research Center. But yeah, you've been, I imagine our audience has probably seen you over the last about 2 weeks. You've been all over the place with Glenn Beck, a number of others. And, well, if you could kind of give our audience a brief background, then I want to get right into the work you're doing.
Sure. So I work for Capital Research Center as an investigative researcher is the title, focused on domestic extremist groups and hostile foreign threats, whether that be foreign governments or anyone that's working through the NGO and philanthropy sector, because that's the scope of Capital Research Center. But my career is broader than that. And so it all kind of intersected with this issue of the anti-Semitic, anti-American networks, which led to me looking at where Soros's money is going, because everyone talks about him so much that I assumed there was nothing left to dig up. I didn't it blew my mind when I went to the website and I was finding grants going to places that I knew about that were pro-terrorism over and over. And I was like, wait a minute, does this mean that nobody went through all of his grants? And apparently that's the case, or was the case until now.
Yeah, oh, I know. It's literally insane. Like, I just started reading through this 80-page paper that you put out yesterday, and unfortunately I have not gotten all the way through it yet. But it is almost unbelievable, some of the things that I saw in there that had not been addressed until now. Like you said, I think everybody's known, Soros is dirty. A lot of this funding is going directly to, radicals here. It's how they get the funding on the ground. It's laundered through Umbrella and other organizations, and then laundered out to various NGOs, both within and outside of Soros's control. But just how damaging this has been over the last 20, 30 years, is untold. Not to mention, again, all the kickbacks that his Open Society and other foundations have gotten through USAID, the State Department, our tax dollars being used to destroy our people. But yeah, if you could, I'm going to go ahead and pull up your article from The Blaze, and you're going to be back on with Glenn Beck later today too, correct?
I am. I'm going on at 11:34.
All right. Well, guys, stay tuned, and I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot from that, and go make sure you check that out. DOJ preparing probe into Soros Open Society Foundation following bombshell expose by Ryan Mauro. Glenn Beck. So if you could elaborate on this, and then we'll get going from there.
Yeah. I'm still stunned when I see that headline, that these things are happening now. But basically, I went through all of the grants, and I came out with this report where I found over $80 million since 2016 that we know about just from their website, from Soros's Open Society Foundations, his charities, to Terror Tide, or even straight up criminal domestic terrorists or pro-terror groups within the United States and abroad. And of that over 80 million, over 23 million of it went to at least 7 groups who you go to their website and the stuff that they publish that instructs people in or talks about them directly participating in actions that meet the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism. Things like rioting, violence, economic sabotage, even harassment can qualify. All of these things. And it's been brought to the Open Society Foundation's attention repeatedly over the years, just in drips and drabs. And their answer is consistently, but no, we're not doing that. No, we wouldn't do that. And they get like Washington Free Beacon in places being like, okay, could you respond to this? And the answer is just like, we are responding. And they just did it yesterday again when the news of this broke that the Trump administration, based on this report, is launching Justice Department investigations for possible criminal charges against Soros and the Open Society Foundations, and I hope the grantees themselves. So they're reviewing the report to see if they can do criminal charges, but there's things you can do that are easier than that. Like most of the report advocates for tax-exempt revocation, taking that away, because I can show, and we do in the report, that while you can make the argument for criminal charges, I think everybody would agree they're violating the IRS code. When you look at the part that we cite and we quote from, you can't have a nonprofit with the privilege. It's not about free speech rights. It's a privilege.
Yes.
To engage in criminal activity, or even it says the IRS code says to sponsor it, to organize it, even uses the word encourage. You're not supposed to have tax exempt benefits for that. Are you crazy?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that basically means that that all of us are subsidizing their sponsorship of various terrorist entities. And make no mistake about it, like they know exactly where their money's going, what it's being used for, especially with a lot of these grants. You know, this isn't one rogue entity that the Open Society Foundations gave money to and then it was misused. You know, we've talked on this program a lot about this entity in California that was handing out the riot shields and bionic face masks in the ICE riots. That was an entity set up to fund medical care for the homeless people. So anybody that don't, now again, there's I'm sure some people understood where their money was really going to, that this was a leftist entity, but a lot of people, you know, they probably thought they were giving to a legitimate good cause. They didn't expect to see their money being used to subsidize riots in California, violence out in the streets, burning police cars, rocks thrown at police cars, and everything else that happened. You know, millions of dollars worth of damage to the city, and numerous law enforcement officers assaulted and injured. But this is sort of the game. And again, like you said, this is they're using these protected statuses to launder money to these organizations. Then they're using that to offset other income that would otherwise be taxable. And a lot of these billionaires are doing, like, it's not just Soros. It's Neville Singham, Reid Hoffman. Yeah. So now,
I don't know that he's in China now. But for a while, he was operating out of China directly. Like there wasn't much done to hide it. So he's an American citizen and made a lot of money off of, I believe he sold software. But you can see that him and his entities had contracts with the Chinese Communist Party, specifically for things like propaganda. And then his network then funds a whole range of groups, has like its own web, just like you mentioned, particularly through groups like People's Forum. It's connected to Code Pink. So yeah, that's an important name that you mentioned. And I don't know, maybe, you know, I saw that the Treasury Department said they're going to do something and I guess sanction him because he's violating the law by being a foreign agent of influence. I don't know that they've actually done it yet, but I think it was Nancy Mace, or no, it was someone else that said that was basically formalized and about to happen.
Yeah, I think Nancy Mace brought up Reid Hoffman and contributions he made. Neville Singham, I think, was Nancy Mace that brought it up and then sent a referral over to the DOJ. And with Singham, yeah, some of his money, it appears to have even violated existing laws, and he seemed to have knowingly done so, funding things from entities that he controlled in China to then launder that money directly into Code Pink, which obviously has an end goal of affecting politics here in the U.S. I mean, again, they're sort of a soft terrorist group. You know, they go in and harass people at hearings. They pound on doors. They shut down Congress. So far, at least, they're not strapping explosives to themselves or shooting right-wingers from rooftops, but they're not that far off. I mean, that's really what makes this scary. It is what we've seen, and their response, this nonchalant response. I brought it up on screen while you were speaking earlier, but that they don't even address it. Soros Foundation fires back at New York Times. We don't fund terrorism. And then they, again, launder this story through various news entities, which many of which probably receive grant money from Soros's other foundations. And that's part of what makes this so disgusting, is it isn't just the direct funding of terrorism, it's funding the message that we see through the media. Asking for the entities they funded were among the fact checkers that were over on Facebook and other platforms that were, again, laundering fictitious stories and actually suppressing free speech, getting people thrown off the platform, getting narratives, falsely discredited. This is an entire web, and this is what allows them both to perform the terrorism and to launder the information, the propaganda to the American people.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's an ideological network. And so it's a mixture of Islamists, anarchists, Marxists, I guess you could say like hyper-partisan extremists who just don't think much beyond their political tribe, because I've heard it said that politics is the new religion.
Yes.
And I think that's very true. But Soros is an interesting character, because I was talking to someone whose job it is to study the guy. And I'm like, well, what's his ideology? Because some things weren't lining up. He's not communist. I mean, he did do a lot of good things to undermine the Soviet Union. Okay. So then is he an anarchist? Well, that doesn't make sense. He wants to centralize control. So what's the story here? And he has a unique ideology. George Soros's ideology is George Soros. Like,
yes.
He has quotes out there where he openly talks about having this monstrous God complex. And it's consistent with other things, even his branding. The Open Society Foundations, like that terminology is referring to his desire for it to basically be borderless. And that just goes back to him, like him wanting control of the whole world. And it sounds so nasty and so supervillain-like that I probably heard it before and assumed that it was just hyperbole. Then I'm seeing the quotes and I was like, oh my God, this guy's a sociopath of an epic degree. It's amazing. I mean, if he didn't have all this money, no one would associate with him.
Yeah. Well, I've got a question for you, and this may be a little outside of your purview, at least what you've looked into, but where did he really first begin to get active in these kind of political moves? Because the first I remember hearing about him was, listening to Rush Limbaugh on and off when I was in high school about MoveOn.org, an entity that he set up basically to shield the Clintons from further investigation of Whitewater and a number of the other scandals that they were involved in. Monica Lewinsky, move on, as in just move on from this. It's not really a story anymore. Just shut up and stop talking about it.
Interesting, because my earliest memory of Move On is the General Petraeus incident with General Petraeus. But Soros, I know that he made his money basically shorting the London market.
Yes.
And there were a lot of people saying, well, how did he not get prosecuted for that? And it's like one of the biggest economic scandals of all time. So that's how he made his money. And then I just know about him focusing on undermining authoritarian rulers, but communism particularly. And that's kind of what built a lot of the goodwill. And once you do something like that, you can get away with a lot of other things later on, because that gives you a pretty nice hall pass. But people, one of the things that I've come to learn this as I get older, there's a lot of evil people that still can do great things with some of their time. You still have to fight them. And there's a lot of really amazing good people occasionally capable of horrible evil.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. Let me go ahead and pull this too, because this is sort of kind of like where a lot of people, like the ultimate direction, what they're looking for is who is funding Antifa right now, and what other leftist aligned or Antifa aligned or terrorism aligned, I don't even know how you put it anymore, entities would also be affected. Trump's obviously declared Antifa a terrorist organization, talked about going after who's funding the network. I'm sure that connects back to Soros and others, but he also signed an order launching all of government effort to dismantle left-wing domestic terrorist organizations. And this is sort of that, like we've been discussing on here a lot, is this combination of a top-down and bottom-up approach, going after who's financing and funding the things, but also going after these violent activists on the ground before they can kill, maim, or injure anybody else. Now, through your research, have you found any like direct paths that have gone to some of these more violent groups, and which ones are they?
Sure. So it was amazing that Trump signed that executive order. My understanding is that that's going to be an initiative of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, which my immediate reaction is that that's good. But if you want to launch a government-wide thing, you probably want to have a point person who is not within one body. Hopefully there's an outside person that can coordinate that he puts in. But as for a direct link, like I said, of the over $23 million that went to at least 7 groups within the United States that are engaged in terrorism on U.S. soil, not just connections to foreign terrorist organizations. The one group, Sunrise, for example, very pro-China, is fundraising for by helping to promote funding entities for Antifa, endorsing the Stop Cop City Coalition, which is an Antifa coalition of anarchists who literally waged a terrorist campaign. Like that, over 60 people in that group have been facing charges of domestic terrorism and racketeering. So that right there is a violent entity. Even if they say they, as an organization, are nonviolent, they didn't quite condemn it. But they, as an organization, are nonviolent. But they know where they are in the infrastructure. Center for Third World Organizing. That's a group that has a hub that includes the anarchist, eco-terrorism linked Ruckus Society. Movement for Black Lives has gotten a ton of money. And they're very mainstream because of the Black Lives Matter movement that they're a part of. But they and a bunch of other groups funded by Soros put together this activism guide, supposedly just to help people protest and answer questions. And then you look at the actual hyperlinks in there, and it'll go to places like the Ruckus Society. They'll have different materials that they provide that are inciting criminal and violent activity. In some cases, groups like dissenters, sometimes they're more blatant about what they want to do, and then sometimes they're a little more cautious. When they're a little cautious, they'll say, go to this link to learn about how to organize a protest. The type of stuff you can go to a million websites for, but what website do they send them to? A page that's on like the Ruckus Society website, because they know when the person goes there for this, harmless page and they see it's just about how to be diplomatic and not be a jerk when you talk to people, they're going to see in the sidebar all those instructions on how to commit crime. They know that was one of the more slick tactics I've seen.
Yeah, and some stories, other stories that we've covered on here previously is about them funding like these pamphlets to rioters, instructing them how to dress in black bloc, why that's important. It makes it harder to arrest them or harder for charges to stick. What one of them included like what air filters you could buy at Home Depot that were most effective against tear gas and CS. So again, like they have a clear plan. They know what's going to happen. This isn't anything new. Well, we just know that this stuff's been funded behind the scenes for a long time and nothing done about it. To kind of switch gears a little bit, because you've also mentioned international terrorism. We covered a story a few weeks ago how prior to October 7th, entities connected to Soros funded 3 different groups that they were part of the infrastructure that allowed the attack on October 7th. So I know that the Soros seems to have an affinity for a lot of these Islamic terror groups around the world. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So there's this weird part of what's called the far left, even though I don't love the term, where they may oppose October 7th, but they sympathize enough with it to support Hamas and the group overall. Like that's not a deal breaker. And then some, of course, just openly support it. The 3 groups I think you might be referring to are the ones that just got sanctioned by the State Department because of their involvement with the International Criminal Court, and basically trying to manipulate it because they're supposed human rights organizations, and they do their think tank reports, but they're very openly part of terrorist groups. You can know this very quickly, and they give those reports that appear authentic, and they give them to other human rights groups, or they give them to the International Criminal Court, and then they stir up a media firestorm and and legal action against Israel. So that's one of the strategies that they deploy. The State Department sanctioned 3 of them for involvement in that. Didn't sanction them yet for their terror connections, actually. So that's a new thing. I haven't seen organizations sanctioned for the International Criminal Court manipulation, that type of thing. But you're right that those groups are part of the October 7th infrastructure.
Well, I know your time's limited, so I do want to kind of get back to one other thing. This is something else that we just saw here yesterday, that these were flyers that went out. So the ones that you see, the first 2 that you see, sorry, these are 3 different images. These are from what's their upcoming plans for, well, they're not going to call them riots, but protests at various locations, including the Israeli embassy in Chicago. They're also planning similar events in D.C. and L.A. I don't have those handy. And the last are these flyers that were circulating. These were caught on Georgetown, but we're hearing they're going around other college campuses. Hey, fascists, catch. Basically, their organization. Let me pull this up so I can read it real quick.
John Brown Club is also known as the John Brown Gun Club, just so people know. It's a militia.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Well, yeah. Now, you got me back on track. Yeah, another entity that we saw that was getting funded by Soros, dollars that originated from Soros, is this Queer Gun Club of Salt Lake City. Approximately 80 members of that seem to have had prior knowledge of Charlie Kirk's assassination. Basically every transsexual in Utah knew about it, but they all kept their mouths shut, which is insane. So these on the ground groups, those are the ones that are the real danger. And I don't think people understand, like, it doesn't take as much money as you'd think it would to fund one of these small entities or organizations. If you're paying for printing costs, somebody's salary that's running the organization, that's out there as their hype man, delivering whatever their plans are, and then using this as a way to build a network of, at this point, literal terrorists. And that's really the greatest danger from these dollars flowing into the United States and elsewhere, is that they're going to the real hardcore, just rabidly insane people. Do you want to comment on that? And then I got a video real quick we'll play after that.
Yeah, so you're right. The actual terrorism part, that last physical act in the process is cheap. What's expensive is creating the ecosystem of hate. Yes. And that's where Soros and the registered nonprofits come in. And because they're not completely stupid, they won't put these guys on payroll. They're not going to say, hey, here, go throw a brick through a window. Here's your salary, and put it in the job description. What their job is to create the ecosystem where that becomes inevitable. And that's where you have to hire people to be full-time organizers, media people, fundraisers, even HR, all these things like any other organization has. And then those groups say, hey, we had nothing to do with it, but the founding purpose for themselves every minute of every day is to create an environment of revolution and sedition where that happens.
Well said. Now, this is a video from Riot Fest, go figure, in Chicago yesterday, where they're destroying effigies of, well, here, I'll just play it and you guys can check this out. Charlie Kirk and President Trump.
War.
Yeah, I don't think that's Guar, but it does kind of look like him.
No, I think that was. I mean, that looked like Guar.
Maybe it was.
Biggest hit, to their credit, was being repeatedly featured on Beavis and Butthead. So I'm amazed that they're still around. Bunch of losers.
Yeah, if that was actually Guar at Riot Fest, I'm also a little surprised, because I know the vocal guy has some very right-wing views. But that was
okay, because I saw someone else saying on social media something about Guar doing something like this. So I said, but maybe it's a wrong video that,
well,
as bad captions.
Well, who knows too? Maybe they've shifted. Maybe the COVID vaccine finally gave them brain worms. I just remember a few years ago them talking about censorship and other things, and whatever the guy's name is, Vocals, started doing a podcast for a little while. But yeah, this was at when we talk about turning down the temperature, as the left likes to say. This was yesterday in Chicago with them. That was them disemboweling President Trump, and I guess the video cut off before the Charlie Kirk head exploding. But this is the kind of thing that we're talking about, and where these dollars are going. This brainwashing that is turning into real action and real danger on the streets. If I could get your comment, then I know you got to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's easy to dismiss this as just people being provocateurs, but when it becomes normalized, it really is a problem. So I kind of sympathize with the left language of turning down the temperature, because for someone who has to be in the ecosystem all the time, I mean, that is the process. We do normalize hatred of each other to spread conspiracy. Like it goes beyond the realm of what's reasonable, inch by inch, and then it becomes a point where you disagree with someone, and it's like that's all you need to know about the person. They don't exist beyond that conversation.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart. And so things like that, it's easy to mock them, but like they're really dangerous. Like people that do that are attacking America. We're attacking America when we do things like that. We just don't always realize it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the bottom line is, and it's been said over and over now, but the left has so dehumanized the right that a lot of them think it's justified. They really do believe they're fighting fascists or Nazis or whatever, that this rhetoric's just gotten completely out of control. Well, Ryan, I want to thank you for joining today. I know you've got a lot going on. Guys, make sure you check out his interview with Glenn Beck. That'll be in about 4 minutes. Ryan, thanks again. We're going to take a quick break here from our sponsors, and I'll be right back with more, guys. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Life can be pretty unpredictable, filled with good days and not so good days. And sometimes, the only difference between the two is your level of preparedness. The Jace case lets you be better prepared for whatever comes your way. It contains antibiotics and other prescription medications so that you aren't caught unprepared. With a Jace case, you are able to get your prescription medication before the unpredictable happens, allowing you to turn those not so good days into great ones. Go to jace.com now and get your own Jace case.
Guys, thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the great programs here on X American News is by supporting our sponsors. So I would like to encourage all of you to go to jace.com or jacemedical.com. Pick up a Jace case for yourself and your family. Again, this isn't a Band-Aid kit or a boo-boo box. This contains antibiotics, steroids, non-narcotic pain relievers, other prescription medication that can be necessary or even life-saving during the time of an emergency. They have other products available, other kits for various circumstances or situations. They also offer long-term supplies of drugs that you or a family member may need to take every day, maybe blood thinners, medication for diabetes, cholesterol, any number of other things. And you can get anywhere from a 1 month to a 1 year supply. You'll just need to call, talk to a physician with them, and they'll send that out so you have it on hand in case our drug supply is cut off, whether that's due to China, since we still don't have operations spun up here to produce all our drugs here at home, or it's due to natural disaster, economic collapse, any number of other fates that could befall us. So once again, this is something that's better to have it, not need it, rather than need it, not have it. It's a relatively small investment. And right now, if you go to jace.com or jacemedical.com and you use code INSURRECTION, you'll get an additional discount and support all the work that we do here on the Insurrection and on the other programs here at X America News. All right, guys. Well, we still got a few more stories to get to. And again, I want to thank Ryan. We plan on having him on for the full show, believe it or not. And part of why we were a few minutes late jumping on here is he got a call from Glenn Beck's team to make an appearance today. And again, with everything else that's happening with Comey, which we're going to get to all that here in a few minutes, things are starting to move into high gear. I really do think this is a shot across the bow. The arrests, or the left sees this as a shot across the bow with the Comey indictments. I guess they're expecting him to turn himself in later today. So things are getting ready to accelerate once again, at least in my opinion. They're once again acting like this is just an out of control witch hunt, a weaponized judicial system. But all of us lived through the reality of the last 10 years. So we know that, nothing could be further from the truth. We've seen them lie and manipulate the media, manipulate courts, manipulate facts, twist laws, create new laws, and not prosecute, but persecute Trump and many affiliated with him. They just had lawyers disbarred. The insanity just hasn't stopped, and they're not willing to acknowledge it yet, which means they haven't felt enough pain. So it's time to ratchet that up. So let me get back to this here real quick. And once again, I do want to thank Ryan, and I'll reach out, see if we can get him back on for a full episode, maybe one day next week or sometime in the near future. Yeah, he's going to have a very busy schedule for a little while. Real terror. Officials stress the danger of online rhetoric in the wake of the deadly Dallas ICE facility shooting. This is something that we've heard over and over from the Trump administration. We just want the left to acknowledge this and back down, to stop calling us all Nazis and fascists, but they can't seem to do it. They don't have anything else to run on. If they can't just demonize their opponents and live in this fantasy world, this delusion that somehow they're fighting against Nazis and fascists, they have no plan, they have no alternatives, and the stances they have taken on issues are, they're on the wrong side of every 90-10, 80-20, and 70-30 issue you can think of, whether that's the LGBTQ MS-13 policy in our schools and trying to trans our kids, supporting genital mutilation and cross-sex hormones, the rest is just disgusting stuff, supporting open borders, putting illegal aliens above American citizens, ignoring their violence, ignoring the violence of the left, wanting an endless war in Ukraine, and doing what they can to facilitate that. We'll get to another story related to that here in a few minutes, but they can't win on anything. They don't have real alternative plans. Most of what they have is just, we don't like President Trump. We don't like the America First movement. So we're going to utilize our power instead to stand in the way of that and stand in the way of progress for Americans here at home. Let me see here. Where do we want to jump to next? So I want to bring up something else that's kind of adjacent. I'd hope to get to with our guest, with Ryan. But this is something we've kind of touched on, but it's a great article. Actually, also happens to be over at The Blaze. Violence gave Jimmy Kimmel his show back. And I agree with this 100%. I think initially their local stations, all their affiliates, ABC and Disney, they were getting calls by their own admission from sponsors wanting something done about Jimmy Kimmel. Then their affiliates called in, said same thing. This is entirely unacceptable. He's going on TV. He's lying. He's misconstruing the facts. He's stoking the fire. He's either delusional or in denial. So you had him pulled from 48, almost at 84 affiliates. And then just 6 days later, ABC caves. Then they cut Jimmy Kimmel. They put him on a hiatus. 6 days later, he's back. And the reason for that is they caved to leftist terrorism. And I'm not just talking about the deranged Democrat that shot up their affiliate station in California. We've heard from both Sinclair and Nexstar that a lot of their stations were getting threats from leftist terrorists for pulling them off air. And that's now continued with the 48 affiliates refusing to air Kimmel, instead re-airing the local news at, I have no idea what time Jimmy Kimmel's show on. We'll pretend it's at 11. But re-airing the local news or other programming that they are sticking to their guns. Well, again, the left tactic of terrorism, they're continuing to go after these stations, continuing to go after affiliates. In reality, I think all of us need to start calling their advertisers and putting some pressure on them that, if you're going to continue to support Kimmel and everything he's doing there on ABC and support Disney, then we're not going to buy your products. It does work. The Bud Light effect is an actual thing. And we need to get back to utilizing our voice and our pressure, just like the left does, to get our political will done. Congress is too slow to act. I think Trump and his administration is, for the most part, doing what they can. but pressure on the ground, that's what works. There's a reason Soros is funding all these protest and terror organizations. Protest works. They organize a lot of these campaigns, calling advertisers on the right or from conservative organizations like Rumble and whatever, and threatening them. We know this tactic works. Now, a lot of us on the right, like, for whatever reason, and I personally don't understand it at this point, like, we're clearly at war. We have to start embracing some of the tactics that are effective that the left uses. And I'm not talking about rioting or firebombing or shooting people or any other violence that they perpetrate, but a lot of these other tactics that they use are highly, highly effective. You call a company, all of a sudden we organize, Rush Limbaugh used to call them call seminars, where you get, say, a few hundred people, and at the appointed time at 2 p.m. Eastern, you begin calling the 10 different companies. Everybody goes through their little list, and all of a sudden, the people at these organizations, the receptionists, the people that answer the phone, the people in the complaints department, all of a sudden they feel like, oh, something big must have just happened. We're getting hundreds of angry calls from listeners about XYZ. The problem appears to be much bigger than it actually is, just like sending this stuff out on Twitter. That's also effective, but I think the calls are still the way to go, because this is somebody that normally doesn't deal with this stuff, some receptionist, whatever, just seeing all this disproportionately huge number of calls coming in. The fact that was given in previous articles was it took under 200 calls to get a bunch of sponsors to drop Sean Hannity, and I don't even remember what this was over, but this was years ago, that at the end of the day, most of the companies that dropped him received fewer than 200 calls. So we know this can be effective. We need to start doing this kind of thing. We need to let companies know we're not going to buy their products, and we have to actually do it. I've been suggesting cutting off Amazon too for continuing to platform hate on Twitch, which they own, from Hassan Piker and others. So start calling them, or take an action. If you have anything that's auto delivery from them, cut that off. And when they ask you why, let them know it's because you continue to platform hate, and you're essentially endorsing violence when you allow Hassan Piker to stay on Twitch and spew this kind of garbage. We can be effective if we actually do things and stick to it. And I think that's part of what the left is, why they're recoiling, why they're getting so violent right now, is some people on the right are beginning to figure that out. I also intended to discuss this with Ryan, but nearly 8 in 10 voters say the United States is in a political crisis after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I would agree. I know Bill and I have kind of gone back and forth on this, but I think the number's probably about correct. That, we saw that 27% of registered Democrats thought that assassinating Charlie Kirk was acceptable, that they embraced a political violence. Now, I tend to think the number is probably slightly higher than that, which is where that there's probably, we'll call it 13% that are smart enough that to say, oh, no, I would never get behind that, even if they are in reality out there supporting it. This is how we end up with that approximately 20% number. If it's approximately 40% of the Democrat Party, then 20% overall that embrace and support violence. And again, some of these numbers are probably little inaccurate, not quite. There's some approximating going on, but I tend to think that's about correct, just because there is that general 20% rule that 20% of any country will always side with its enemies. And this is something, again, we see illustrated in the 80-20 rule. Let's go ahead and see what I have next on. Oh, yes. Yeah. Justice finally catches up with James Comey, indicted for lies and obstruction. This is the congressional referral that was handed over no less than 3 months ago. The only reason they're moving forward with this indictment is because in another, I think, 4 days now, he'll be past the statute of limitations, either 4 or 5 days. But regardless, this is something we've been calling for months. So I don't know what kind of pressure it took on Pam Bondi to finally get her to move this forward. Now we're hearing that they expect him to turn himself in sometime today. Again, I saw Roger Stone earlier. Why no 6 a.m. raid? How come this guy wasn't handcuffed and frog marched? I think that's, again, really unfortunate. But I do also kind of understand the Trump's people and Trump understand our media is completely dishonest, even though they cheered when they were sitting down there at 6 a.m. Well, Roger Stone and others were getting hauled in. They were there at the airport. Somebody tipped them off at the DOJ to be there when they were grabbing Peter Navarro at the airport, or grabbing Roger Stone from his house at 6 a.m. They knew to be there. They knew to film. This was, again, a coordinated media effort from the deep state to push propaganda upon the American people to make sure we got their message, and that's what everybody covered. And I know for a fact that had we done something similar, 6 a.m. raid, picking up Comey, they may or may not go out there to cover it, but regardless, they would treat this like it was unheard of. They would completely forget about the history of what happened under Biden, which is what they're doing. They're trying to ignore it and excuse it as much as humanly possible. But I think the real problem that the left is having right now is the American people's memory is not as short as they've said it is. It really isn't that of a goldfish. People can connect these dots and do understand we're seeing a very different, not just a two-tiered justice system, but a two-tiered system of reporting the facts from our media. That every effort possible is taken to excuse and absolve the left of their violent behavior, of their violent rhetoric and everything else. It's the whataboutism. Well, what about the right? What about the one time somebody here in wherever in Paducah, Kentucky? What about this one time some person that was on the right perpetrated some kind of violence? Not even to say that it was political, it could have been outside of that. But they will tie us to anything they can. Hence again, these, false studies that they love to keep citing. One of them, as I think we covered this on here yesterday, was actually produced by a member of Antifa or somebody that moonlights as Antifa. But, they'll include things like prison violence, Islamic terrorism, anything that can vaguely, they can somehow construe as right-wing, whereas most left-wing violence is ignored. Things like the Summer of Love George Floyd riots. Oh, well, those weren't left-wing. Those were just social justice issues. This is the game they play. They don't count any of the attacks on people protesting at abortion clinics. They don't count anything that they can somehow dream up a way to weasel out of and not count for the left. That's how you end up with these idiotic studies that say, oh, well, only 4% of the violence comes to the left. Well, that's because you're not counting the bulk of it. Some of it, like black nationalist violence, that's counted as right wing for some reason, even though these people are clearly on the left. Same with a number of other things that are clearly leftists committing violence, but they count them as right wing. And again, make no mistake, this is by design. They want to again control the experts and control the narrative, and that's how they do it. Is pretending these things are fact. There's never any scrutiny, and there's no honesty in it, and that's a big part of the problem. Is two sides having two different sets of facts, but the problem is the left's set of facts are in most cases entirely delusional. Maybe there's something out there I'm unaware of, but in most cases are just totally delusional, devoid of reality. Well, we also have this, and we talked about this yesterday. James Comey's son-in-law abruptly quits DOJ after former FBI director's indictment. There has been a rumor circulating that that Comey's son-in-law stumbled across some other things, and that's part of what set this into motion. I don't think that's actually the truth now, but we'll see what else happens, because I'm sure he's going to be, glorified by the leftist media the rest of the day today. I'm sure he'll be lining up for interviews, or if he isn't already, to get his side of the story out there, which they'll be very sympathetic to. FBI bombshell, and this is huge. 274 agents sent to Capitol for J6. Many later complained they were political pawns. So this actually, let's go ahead and pull our next one, because this dovetails right into our next headline. Breaking. Christopher Wray lied under oath. FBI had 274 plainclothes agents in the crowd on January 6th. It was a total Fedsurrection. So that is the next question we have to start asking now that we're finally getting the truth about the number of agents that were embedded in the crowd on January 6th. Now we need to find out how many of them were agent provocateurs. Were they out there breaking windows? Were they getting who unsealed the magnetic doors? What else were their hands directly on? Were they encouraging violence? Were they coordinating anything? Because as we saw with the Gretchen Whitmer Fed napping case out of Michigan, it's very likely that they were the ones that set up, or at least pushed the ball in motion to perpetrate the violence that did occur on January 6th. And again, that's very minimal, especially when you consider the number of people there and what leftist riots look like, where they literally burn down cities. Worst we can say here is a few windows got broken, and there was an unregulated, unguided tour through the Capitol. And then, yes, there's a few people that got into fights with police officers, but even the majority of the charges for violence there are just trumped up nonsense. It's somebody bumping a police officer with a sign or something else. Where, again, right now, we're watching them dismiss this kind of stuff left and right, even though they're smacking police officers in the face with signs, throwing tear gas and whatnot. Our side's still playing this just limp-wristed nonsense, refusing to actually get involved and charge these people with the crimes they're committing. But anyway, this breaks Ray's case, and this proves that he lied under oath to Congress. And again, I know for a fact that they are sitting on at least 2 criminal referrals for separate incidents of Christopher Wray lying to Congress. So I don't know if this is a third one or not. I forgot to actually go back and check what the other 2 referrals were for before I started. But he clearly lied directly to Congress about exactly how many FBI agents were embedded, and he had to have known. He was the director of the FBI. Ropes tighten on Trump-hating former CIA chief John Brennan. Investigators are zeroing in on the Russiagate lies he made under oath. And again, I think this is the path to get them initially, and then we go after them for conspiracy or RICO charges or anything else that they're pursuing related to Russiagate. But getting the piece off the board now makes sense. So yeah, now we're starting to hear rumors. There may be indictments and arrests for him. We're hearing the same about the mustache man. Why do I always forget his name? And him getting scooped up this week. So again, I'm there for it. Really, I think we need to bring down all these people that perpetrated this fraud on the American people. We need to, the Majinsky Act needs, the Charlie Kirk Act, as it is now, the Smith-Mundt Act, not the Majinsky Act. That's about adoption. Smith-Mundt, or AKA the Charlie Kirk Act, that needs to be signed into law. And then we also need to reveal everything that went on behind the scenes with the U.S. government using their power to influence and whether it's strong arming or not, various social media companies to deplatform people, to demote stories, and lies that they laundered through the media about, oh, this is fake, this is clearly Russian propaganda, it's a hoax. All of this needs to end, and the people that were responsible for it need to be held accountable, and then we absolutely have to put measures in place to ensure this kind of thing never, ever, ever happens again. Well, if everybody wasn't already nervous enough, here's yet another reason to be. Pete Hegseth orders urgent meeting of top military leaders. He's called in all generals, all admirals, everyone, all our top commanders from every branch of the military for a meeting to occur next Tuesday. So people are already speculating about this and you have this runs the gambit from possible war with Russia to military action here at home, mass arrests. Again, I think if that were the case, we would have already heard something about it. I wish that were the truth. To just rolling out new policy, basically letting people know, hey, we're going to clean up the military. We're getting rid of all this nonsense DEI, CRT crap that Biden instituted. And if you're not along for that ride, you should probably just leave now. Well, we're going to keep eyes on this, obviously, and there's other people speculating it could be various other events here and around the globe, and even some people suspecting it's an upcoming alien invasion from a 3-eye atlas or something else. I'll put that in the far-fetched category, at least for now, but we'll see something. Excuse me. We'll see. Something could always change. All right. But yeah, I am a little concerned. The other possibilities, we've seen Russia overstepping the borders into other NATO countries. Now, with the first story this happened, I kind of thought it was probably an accident that because there were some people speculating it had to do with GPS spoofing and other things when they flew over the borders of I think it was Poland initially. And I sort of believe that because they haven't done anything else similar beforehand, that maybe it really was just an accident or even just a drone that was out of control and off its path or guidance or whatever. But we've since then seen them breach borders of Estonia and other countries, and now it's at the point where it has to be intentional. And that also means, as Trump said yesterday, these NATO nations, if Russia flies into their airspace, they need to pursue them and shoot them down. Well, that could trigger, Article 5 NATO, and then all of a sudden we are at war with Russia, not just us, all of Europe. And this is clearly what they've wanted as a provocation into war over there. Trump, I think, has done his best to avoid it. He's tried for peace in Ukraine. But how do you make somebody that refuses to honestly come to the table, how do you make them sign a peace agreement? We've seen Zelensky sabotaging this every step of the way. He's not an honest player. He lied about mineral rights deals and other things related to offsetting the huge amount of spending we've done for Ukraine, basically sparing them. If it's not for our dollars, they'd already be learning to speak Russian right now. But yeah, this could have potential far-reaching, horrifying consequences if the reason for this meeting is that we are anticipating war with Russia, because that will probably also quickly lead into war with China. The other possibility I've heard floated that there may be some credence to is that we've gotten wind of Iran planning attacks not just against Israel, but potentially against us as well, as retaliation for Israel strikes into Iran and for us assisting with bringing down their ability to generate nuclear weapons, their uranium stockpile, and their centrifuges and whatnot. So, again, something to keep an eye on. I'm sure we'll be bringing it back up next week. We've only got a little bit of time left here, so let me see what else we want to get to. Well, actually, I'm going to pull one other story, and then I've got one other video to take us out. So this is something else interesting. Obviously, right now we're preparing for another government shutdown. Something doesn't change soon. The Democrats are holding us hostage, even though, again, the media is saying it's, of course, the Republicans' fault that we refuse to work with them. But one of the big things is they want $350 billion over the next few years to be dumped back into Obamacare because some of the sweeteners are running out of money. But upon looking into this, there seems to be some shenanigans going on there, too. It's poisoning the budget negotiations, as this says. And sorry, let me pull this up so I can read this back to you guys here. Just 1 second. So upon looking into this, they noticed a few things, and that's that there's a huge number. Sorry, my computer is freaking out all of a sudden. There it goes. Well, maybe it's not going to cooperate because I wanted to give you guys the exact number, but there's an insane number of people that are receiving insurance through the Obamacare exchanges that haven't made claims for years. That not anything, no doctor's visits, no prescription drugs, no anything. Okay, here we go. It's finally going to open back up. I want to say it was 12 million people. So let me just double check that. So yeah, out of Democrats and the insurance industry argue that consumers are taking advantage of the affordable coverage. They warn that more than 20 million Americans are on Obamacare or policies made possible by Obamacare. Well, the reality is that current estimates, studies found that they've sparked curious phenomenon, and an estimated 12 million of these enrollees have not had a single claim. No doctor's visits, no lab tests, no prescriptions filed in 2024, and they're beginning to look back at years. So is this another money laundering operation like USAID? Is all this money that's going to these Obamacare certified state coverage insurance agencies, are they also doing kickbacks to the DNC or to other outside parties, other Democrat aligned organizations? We'll just call them that. And then there's also the waste. And once again, because of these requirements, all of our insurance costs more, significant amount every month, because we're forced to pay for things like, cross-sex hormone treatments, abortions, numerous other things, psychological visits, which I guess a lot of these on the left are probably getting good use of that right now. But again, the fact of the matter is this needs to end, and they can fund the one or two aspects of this program that were positive, like CHIP. And again, I'd argue overall it's not a good thing, but this is insurance just for needy children, or it's supposed to be. Again, I know it gets abused in a lot of places, but that's 2.8 million kids. So why is it our side has to capitulate and agree to the left's demands, whereas the left when they're in power, they ignore us almost completely. They refuse to negotiate with us. We're on the outside, but then when we're in power, we still give the Democrats a seat at the table. We give them power. We refuse to do what's necessary to actually defeat our enemies and really win the argument. All right, guys, we are almost out of time, but I got one last video I want to run for you guys. You've probably seen this circulating the internet already, that I think this is a radio station. One of their guys took Kamala Harris's book and slowed down her speeches. Listen to this, guys.
I've been going through the Kamala Harris audiobook since last night. And as torturous as that is, my evil brain decided maybe if we slow it down 30%, she sounds drunk. You want me to give you a little sample?
Oh, please do, sir.
In the summer of 2021, during her final trip to Washington as German Chancellor, I hosted Angela Merkel for breakfast at the Vice President's residence.
I think they were serving mimosas.
I am a stickler for being on time. I feel it's a mark of respect. Everyone's time is valuable. But sometimes schedules go sideways and I fall short.
You are an evil genius, Mike.
Dude, that is so great.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Hold on. Kamala Harris is called in. Let's punch her up. She's on line one. Kamala, your thoughts on Mike Opelka with too much time on his hands?
How dare they?
Yeah.
Opelka's got it.
All right. But yeah, I feel like I've heard that cadence and tone from her before a few times. She didn't know the camera was on. But yeah, there's Kamala Harris and How She Drank Her Way to the Top, or whatever her book's called. I don't think she drank her way there, but that's not appropriate. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Again, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank Ryan for joining us. We'll try to get him back on so we can go through the rest of his data and probably new things that he uncovers here soon. But thank you for joining. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't.